I must say I'm not one of Robert Jenrick's greatest supporters, but I entirely back him up in his condemnation of the BBC for refusing to describe Hamas as terrorists, for calling Hamas militants, political resistance, fighters. They are terrorists. These are people who crossed the border and killed 250 people at a festival, young people running for their lives. They attacked kibbutz nearby. They killed grandmothers. They took children, young people into captivity. They're using them as human shields. This is not the activity of militants. This is the activity of thugs and terrorists. He says that anybody who valorized Hamas in the UK should be hunted down, arrested and prosecuted. I think we have to be very careful about the language that we use to describe Hamas. It doesn't mean that we can't support Palestine. I think we can, and I think we can be extremely sympathetic and concerned about the Palestinians caught up in this mess. They don't deserve that. And I can well understand why it's so difficult to rid their country, rid the Gaza region of the Hamas overlords. Who would vote against Hamas when you know that any criticism of these thugs could well lead to death? Robert Jenrick talks about the miracle of Israel standing as a shining beacon of hope in a region of extremism, and that beacon burns brighter than ever when confronted with evil at moments like this. But equally, that means that Israel must be careful in the way it responds, and the bombing of civilian structures in Gaza, in an incredibly built-up area, is not an ideal response. Jenrick has said this is not a barrage against military targets. It was indiscriminate murder, rape and kidnapping of hundreds of completely innocent people, with children as young as 3 and people as old enough to have survived the Holocaust. Chief Rabbi Sir Ephraim Mervis has also criticised media outlets who have not described Hamas as terrorists. If one doesn't use the term terrorist, as if one is providing a window of opportunity for justification, he says nothing can justify this. Can you imagine, God forbid, terrorists attacked Glastonbury and murdered 260 teenagers there? What would the British public say about anyone in the media that wouldn't call those perpetrators terrorists? This is all about the BBC editorial guidelines and about their desperation for being fair, being balanced. Being fair and being balanced does not mean condoning terrorism or in some form rationalizing terrorism or rehabilitating the terrorist. We need to say things as they are, and then look to see where we can find sympathy and humanity. The BBC have said in response, we reported the Hamas attacks and the response by Israel in line with the BBC's editorial guidelines. We've included contributions from those who have condemned the attackers as terrorists, and we have reported that Hamas is designated as a terrorist group by many Western governments, including the UK. But Mr. Jenrick has talked about solidarity. There will be bigots and racists who will use it as a pretext to spread hatred against Jews here in the UK. So let me be very clear that valorising the terrorism of Hamas on the streets of UK is a serious criminal offence. To engage in it, or indeed any other form of anti-Semitic attack, They must be hunted down, arrested and prosecuted. There can be no tolerance of this hatred and anti-Semitism in our country. Today, above all days, we stand shoulder to shoulder with the Jewish community here in the UK. And we say clearly, unambiguously, with one voice, we stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. Israel will prevail, and the UK will do everything in its power to ensure it does. I'm afraid Robert Jenrick, in his vehemence, sort of undoes the sympathy that he initially requested and initially commanded. But I don't think in any way that he undermines the criticism that he's made of the BBC. That criticism is perfectly valid.